Hello, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile video. Today, I am going to be going over my Earth Machine deck that I use in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So, yeah, this deck is kind of unique to me in that not only have I actually played it, I have played it a great deal. In fact, it even got me all the way up to Diamond rank, so I can say with some level of confidence that this deck actually sort of works pretty well. So I've been trying to collect all of these cards in paper so that I could make a fun little video for you all to watch. So as I have always done with my deck profiles, I do a brief overview of all the cards first and how many of each I'm using and why. And then after that, I go into a bit more depth with all the combos and things that you can do in the deck in the later part of the video. So, here we are. Let's get started. We have Infinitrack Harvester, and I run this at 3. This is sort of one of the starters of the deck. You can actually get pretty far just off of a single one of these harvesters. What it does is when you play it, when you normal or special summon it, you can search your library for another Infinitrack card and put it into your hand, but when this is in play, you can also pick another, I think, any machine monster? Yeah, any machine monster you control, and each of their levels becomes the sum of both of them. So if you have this level 2 and a level 5, you can make them both level 7 to do some Excise plays, which is not irrelevant, but the search is the most important part of this card. And now I also have these 2 Infinitrack Anchor Drills. Similar to the Harvester, it can add up its level with another card, but when this one comes into play, you can special summon another Earth Machine directly from your hand. And then you can, excise them or whatever you want to do. So it's sort of another starter, not as important as the Harvester, but still a nifty card to have access to. Which brings me to the other Infinitrack cards. So these are all level 5s, you special summon them by sacrificing another Earth Machine. The Brutal Dozer is probably the one you're going to be searching for the most, because when you special summon this one from your hand, that is important, you get to search your library for another Infinitrack card and special summon it right away. But then it locks you into only playing Earth Machine monsters for the rest of the turn, so keep that in mind. But luckily, most of the cards are Earth Machine monsters, so you can get some crazy stuff going with the Brutal Dozer. We have 1 copy of the Crab Crane. So this is one that I don't see a lot of other people using, but it does some stuff. It's not bad. It is a level 5. You can search for it with the Brutal Dozer and Excise into a rank 5. It has 500 defense, which is actually relevant for another card later on, and you can banish a machine monster from your graveyard to take an Outrigger extension from your deck to your hand, and you'll see what that card does when I get to it. It's a spell card. Infinitrack Tunneler, another Infinitrack level 5, but this one has a nifty effect from the graveyard. You can banish this card from your graveyard and target 5 Earth Machine monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them all into the deck, draw 2 cards. So this is one that you actually would rather have in the graveyard, which is not difficult to do in this deck. And Infinitrack Trencher is similar. From the graveyard, this one can banish itself and special summon another Infinitrack monster from your graveyard, which could, of course, trigger its effects that happen when it comes into play, and you can go pretty far with Infinitrack Trencher as well. Get a lot of use out of that one. Which brings us to my small Machina package that I have in this deck. Machina Fortress. This was really a game changer when I started using it. You can do a lot of crazy things with Machina Fortress. It enables some OTKs. It's really quite good. You special summon it from your hand or graveyard by either... Well, yeah, by just discarding machine monsters whose levels are greater than 7, including itself. So if it is in your hand, you can discard it and another machine monster to special summon it from the graveyard. So it's very versatile in that way, and that is not a once per turn effect. So as long as you have enough levels of machine monsters in your hand, you can just keep on playing this. And yeah, a lot of combos are enabled with that. Now, we also have the Machina Metal Cruncher. This is kind of another starter if you have nothing else in play. You can play this as a... well, it's still a level 9, but it only gets 1800 attack, but you can normal summon it without tributing. And then you search your library for 3 Earth Machines, your opponent chooses one of them at random, adds it to your hand. So it replaces itself in your hand, and this is why I run 3 Infinitrack Harvesters. Because that way you can just guaranteed get that Harvester to your hand. But you can get other things that special summon themselves too if you want to just go a bit wide that way. And then the Machina Citadel. So this one is interesting in that you don't really want this in your hand. You can't play it from your hand. But when one of your machine monsters, Earth Machine monsters, I think, is destroyed, then you can special summon this from your graveyard. And it is a 3000 attack, level 10, it's big, but you can destroy one of your machines, including this one perhaps, to pretty much just wipe your opponent's board, to destroy anything that has less power than the machine that you destroyed. And, you know, it goes to the graveyard if you choose to destroy itself, so this does become a persistent pest for your opponent to need to deal with. And speaking of level 10s, we have the Heavy Freight Train Derricrane, which special summons itself with lower stats whenever you normal or special summon another machine, so it sets up those rank 10 plays. And the Super Express Bullet Train, which is another level 10, and as long as you have only Earth Machines in play, you can just special summon this for free. It is not easy to attack with, you have to tribute other monsters in order to attack with it, but, again, sometimes, like, 3000 attack is not small. This can also enable OTKs on its own. And during the end phase, if this card is in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can target a machine in your graveyard and add it to your hand, except itself. So you can also kind of set up plays for the next turn. Which brings us to the Ancient Gear Box. So this card is a combo piece, pure and simple. When it is added to your hand from your deck or graveyard, except by drawing it, you can add another Earth Machine to your hand with exactly 500 attack or defense. So you will have noticed, maybe, that several of the other cards in this deck have exactly 500 attack or defense, which makes Ancient Gear Box a very versatile way to search them up. And again, it's a combo piece. You do all sorts of stuff with that. Now that brings me to my hand traps, because you don't want your opponent doing stuff if you can help it. So we have 1 copy of Effect Veiler to shut down a monster's effects. We have 2 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring to shut down anything that they're trying to bring out of their deck. And we have 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird to, again, try to stop them from drawing so darn many cards, because people draw way too many cards on their turn. And that brings us to the spells. So I have 3 Machina redeployments. This is a very, very important starter for the deck. If you can get one of these to go off, you will be in a very good position, because what you do is you discard another card, and you take 2 Machina monsters from your deck, add them to your hand, which just pretty much sets up your entire turn. And then we have 2 heavy forwards. Now, you could run 3 of these. I kind of consider Machina Metal Cruncher to be my 3rd heavy forward. What it does, when it comes into play, you can take an Infinitrack monster from your deck, add it to your hand. Very simple. And since this is a continuous spell, it has some other effects too. You can, once per turn, change an Excise monster's battle position, or add this card to that monster as material. So it does some useful stuff. Just keep in mind, though, because this is a continuous spell, if this is already in play, you can't play Machina Metal Cruncher as easily. Trust me, I have been burned by that before. But yes, 2 of those. And then we have 2 urgent schedules. This card is crazy. If you can get this to go off, I'm not gonna say you're guaranteed to win, but you are going to be in a very, very good position to set up all kinds of combos and probably win. It's a quick play spell. What it does is, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon a level 4 or lower and a level 5 or higher Earth Machine right from your deck. And you negate their effects, but having access to pretty much any cards in your deck, like, for free, this is practically a pot of greed. It's very good. Also, if this card is... I think, yes, if it is set and it is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can just take a level 10 machine monster from your deck and add it to your hand. So it is also very versatile. An excellent card. I run it at 2. You don't really... I've never needed 3. I've always gotten away with only 2. This deck does a lot of things, and this is just one of them, so you don't really need to focus on it too much, but it's excellent to use if you have it. And here is the Outrigger extension. So what this card does is it takes one of your Excise monsters and allows you to Excise summon on top of it another one that is 2 ranks higher, so your level 5 can become a level 7. And it also stops your opponent from targeting your rank 5 or higher machine Excise monsters with effects, so it is both defensive and offensive, because you can just build your smaller Excise monsters into much bigger ones, and do some crazy stuff. It is a very useful card, I like it. And that brings us to some removal. We have Raigeki, we have Harpy's Feather Duster, just to, you know, wipe some stuff off the board. We have Lightning Storms, 2 of them, to, again, deal with pretty much anything. We have a Called by the Grave, because you've gotta. Your opponent is going to use hand traps on you, and this kinda stops them. We have a Cross-Out Designator. Now this one I'm kind of on the fence about. I have found it to not be super useful all the time, but it's kind of what I'm limited to right now on Master Duel, so I do use it, and it comes in handy once in a while. It deals with common threats, ones that I also have a copy of in this deck. And then I have 3 Forbidden Droplets, because I don't understand how anybody can play this game without first negating your opponent's entire field. So, you may have guessed this by now, but this deck wants to go second. A lot of the Infinitrack monsters are good at getting rid of what your opponent has already played, and OTKs are pretty easy to set up, so you want to be able to attack. Unfortunately, you also want to be able to play the game, so that's where Forbidden Droplet comes in handy, as well as the board wipes that I just passed by. Just be careful, don't destroy things too quickly, because if you have that urgent schedule in hand, you want to play that first. Luckily, it's a quick play, so things are easy that way too. And last but not least, we have 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, because there is literally no reason not to use these in every deck. If you go first, you can set them. If you go second, you can use them on your opponent's turn to negate an effect. Very, very useful. Now then, on to the extra deck. So, most of this extra deck is Excise monsters, but there are a few useful Link monsters as well. Starting with the Infinitrack Goliath, which I run 3 of. So, you can get away with running only 2 of these, I did for a long time. But then you have to be careful with how you use it. If you have 3, you can kind of just use these willy-nilly and not think too hard about it. So, what it takes is a non-link Infinitrack monster, so this can be used to just send stuff to the graveyard if it would be better suited there. That is a useful ability to have, but when this card is sent to the graveyard, then you can take one of your Excise monsters and attach this card to it as a material. Again, very useful. And when this card is attached to one of your Excise monsters, that card cannot be destroyed by card effects. So not only can it be used offensively to load your Excise monsters with all kinds of materials, it can also be used defensively just to keep them alive. So it kind of just does everything, which is why you probably want 3. Now we also have this double-headed Anger Knuckle, which is a card I don't use as often, but it does come up from time to time. So it's 2 machine monsters to use this one. Unfortunately, it can't be used as link material, but what you can do with it is send a monster from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon a level 10 machine monster from your graveyard, so it sets up your level 10 plays. And if this card is in your graveyard, send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard, and you can special summon it back. So it does a decent amount of things, and again, those rank 10 plays are nothing to sneeze at. Now the Ancient Gear Ballista here, this is an extremely important combo piece. So it does a lot of stuff. When you play it, you add an Ancient Gear monster, or Gear Town, which is not relevant, from your deck to your hand. So this takes the Ancient Gear box from your deck to your hand, which means Ancient Gear box was added to your hand by a card effect, and that means you can take one of those 500 attack or defense Infinitrack monsters and add them to your hand as well. So this just loads your hand full of stuff and enables all kinds of combos. And as an added bonus, you can destroy one of your spells or traps to target one of your opponent's monsters and change its attack and defense to 0 for that turn. Every once in a while that matters. So, a very useful card. You will be using this a lot if you're playing this deck. And then we have the Clyfort Genius. Clyfort Genius? I don't know how to pronounce it. But it doesn't matter because I rarely use this card. But it is an Earth Machine Link monster. Sometimes it comes in handy. What it does, the main effect is that it targets one of your cards and one of your opponent's cards and negates their effects. So sometimes this is the only way to get around something annoying. Also, if you special summon monsters to both zones that this one points to, you can take a level 5 or higher machine and add it to your hand from your deck. I've never done that, but every once in a while, negating effects, you know, it comes in handy. And that brings us to the Excise monsters. So the Heavy Armored Train Iron Wolf. Rank 4, what it does is you detach a material and target one of your machines, and it can attack directly this turn. This does enable OTKs. It's a very useful card. Also, it's just an easy way to get an Excise monster to attack without any kind of interference. And, you know, there's reasons to do that, which you will see later on. Infinitrack River Stormer is the rank 5 Infinitrack. So what all of these Infinitrack Excise monsters do, they all have this, this second effect here. And first effect, actually, yeah, they all have a bunch of effects. But what happens is, if this card, or any Infinitrack Excise monsters, destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can take that monster and attach it as material. So it eats your opponent's monsters, and that is, again, surprisingly relevant because a lot of monsters want to be in the opponent's graveyard, and this stops that from happening. It actually really shuts down a lot of strategies. And if you have a Link monster in play, you can sacrifice it to play this from your graveyard in defense position. So, if you sacrifice one of your Goliaths, then that means that the Goliath was sent to the graveyard, which means you can then equip it, or attach it to any of your Infinitrack Excise monsters to give them free material so they can use their other effects, and they all do have a unique effect. Now, this is a good one, too. You detach something and you just search your library for any Earth machine and add it to your hand. Combo piece. Very useful. The Infinitrack Mountain Smasher is less useful, but it has its uses. This is the rank 7, and of course it has the same first and third effects as the last one. The special effect that it has is you can detach a material to give it 1000 extra attack permanently. So 2100 attack isn't that much, but 3100 is quite a bit more. This thing can get big if you keep it in play for a while. Otherwise, it's just a 3100 defensive wall that a lot of things can't get over, so, you know, not bad. Not bad, just not particularly useful all the time. Infinitrack Earth Slicer, on the other hand, is very useful all the time. Because what this one does is you detach any number of material and then target that many cards and destroy them. So you kind of just wipe out whatever your opponent has, or in rare cases, what you have. Remember, your Machina Citadel can be played from the graveyard when one of your Earth Machines is destroyed. So maybe you just want a 3000 attack beater and you need to destroy one of your cards to do it. Or you can use this to destroy your own Urgent Schedule to get a level 10 to your hand. So there are sneaky ways you can use this effect besides just destroying your opponent's cards. It also has 3100 attack, it's big. The Phantom Fortress Enter Blathnir is not an Infinitrack. It is also not an Earth Machine, so sometimes you simply can't play this. But it's not a bad rank 9 to go into, especially if you're going first, because you can remove a material from it to do all sorts of things. You banish a card, or banish random cards from your opponent's hand, banish cards from the graveyard, banish the top card of your opponent's deck. It just banishes a bunch of stuff. But banishing from the opponent's hand might be important. This deck struggles to go first. This is one of the few things you can kind of do to disrupt your opponent. And then we get into the big ol' rank 10s, the number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora. 4000 defense. This is another thing you can do if you're going first. Just sit on this. That's about all. You can remove materials to either protect itself or protect something else. Actually, one thing that I forgot to mention as I was going through my deck earlier, let's see if I can find it. Here we go. The Derek Crane here, it has another effect that I, forgot about. What it does, if this card is detached as a material, you can target something and destroy it. So this being a quick effect, it does give you a fast way to just destroy something your opponent plays. Again, it's not great disruption, but it does something, so, maybe just try not to go first. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, though. Again, a combo piece enables OTK's very powerful rank 10. You detach a material to inflict 2000 direct damage to your opponent, and if you detached the Derek Crane, then you get to destroy something. But both of those rank 10s are relevant because you can play one of these directly on top of either one. This is a Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Liebe, and this card right here just wins games. So 4000, 4000, it's massive. It can attack as many times as it has material +1. So sometimes it is best to leave your opponent with cards in play, so that you can just attack into all of them with the Rail Cannon Juggernaut here, and do obscene amounts of damage. You can also remove a material to give it 2000 more attack, permanently, I think. So, yeah, if you've got something with 6000 attack that can attack a bunch of monsters, yeah, you're doing a lot of damage. And also worth noting, 6000 attack from this, plus 2000 attack from the Gustav, or 2000 direct damage rather, equals 8000, so that is a clean way to do some OTKs. And finally, we have the Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. Sometimes games just come down to playing this. It's kind of a last resort type of thing. You won't be playing this on your first turn, probably. But again, sometimes it's all you can do, so if a Excisee monster has attacked that battle phase, you can play this onto it for free, and you can remove material, 2 material from it, as a quick effect to send everything else on the board to the graveyard. So, your opponent tries to do something on their following turn, you can just stop them. Very easily, actually. And if you can load this thing with all kinds of material, either by eating your opponent's monsters, or using Heavy Forward, or using Infinitrack Goliath, you can use that effect more than once. So, yeah, this kind of ends games, but in a different way, because it just sort of stops your opponent from doing anything. And that brings me to my honorable mentions. These are cards that sort of go with the deck, but I don't use them personally. There is one more level 5 Infinitrack, the Drag Shovel. It is like the Crab Crane, except it gets a spin turn, which is a trap card. You change the battle position of one of your Excisee monsters, and you destroy either a monster or a spell or trap. So it's not awful, but this deck doesn't really want to go first, so it wouldn't make a lot of use of spin turn. And there are better removal cards than Spin Turn. Like, if I was building a fluffy, pure Infinitrack deck, then for sure this would be my main form of removal, but, yeah, not this time. We also have the Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede, and, yeah, the Revolving Switchyard here. So these are both train cards that are more related to going for those rank 10 plays. My deck kind of revolves more heavily on the Infinitrack stuff. The trains are there, and they're good when you can use them, but the Infinitrack stuff is just easier to use. Not that this is a bad card. You can bring stuff back from your graveyard and change the levels to match each other, so it does enable some plays, but yeah, I just didn't really find myself using it all that much, or trying to use it even. And the Switchyard is a field spell that turns things into level 10, or you can discard cards to take a level 10 to your hand. Again, it's not bad. I just didn't really find myself needing to use it. And there are a couple other extra deck monsters here. The Infinitrack Fortress Megaclops. It requires 3 Excisee monsters to play, so if you have 3 Excisee monsters in play, you can probably just win. You don't need this. This is kind of a win more card, in my opinion. And same with the Digvorzak here, King of Heavy Industry. It's really cool, but it requires 3 level 5s, and I don't think you'd ever want to go into this over the River Stormer to potentially combo out and win. Still, it's a cool card, you know, that's something. Oh, and then we have all of these Machinas and Machina accessories. A lot of people use these, and I see why, because they do some really good things. But this is just extra bloat for the deck that I don't think it needs right now, and you will see why when I get around to the next part of this pile. The Gear Frame takes a Machina to your hand. The Unclaspare special summons itself. The Gear Gigant is one way to get rid of this pesky Dark Machine. You can Excisee into it, and then it gets something else to your hand. Like, these are all useful effects. Don't get me wrong. But there is something missing from Master Duel right now that prevents them from being the most useful. And the Ruin Force, I just don't want that many cards in my hand that I don't want to be there. And Overdrive, I don't use enough Machinas to really make use of this right now. But the elephant in the room is Therion King Regulus, and maybe Disc Coliseum. So this is an Earth Machine. It special summons itself. It has a negate effect. This is an extremely good card. That is not in Master Duel, so that's why I'm not using it. When this card is added, I'm sure it will be a game changer. But until then, I haven't been messing around with it too much. Although I will say something fun that you can do with Regulus here is if you special summon it by attaching Machina Gear Frame to it from your graveyard, then you can detach Machina Gear Frame by its own effect and make it a monster again. Like, you can do some fun stuff with that. But not yet. So, yeah. One day, Regulus. Alrighty then, let's get into some combos that you need to know if you are playing this deck or something similar. Also, as a bit of a side note, you may have noticed that there are some, let's call them Master Duel staples that I do not use in this deck. That is because I built this entire deck to conform to the TCG ban list. So, yes, no Max C, no Anaconda, none of that garbage. This is all very good and TCG legal, just in case I ever want to take this deck somewhere and play it. I want to make sure that I actually can. So, starting off, let's just go over a sort of common combo, something that happens a lot when playing this deck, and I will walk through it step by step here, just so that I don't have to do it every time this comes up, because it comes up quite often. So you play the Infinitrack Harvester, which allows you to bring the Brutal Dozer to your hand. Now, at this point, you can actually sacrifice the Harvester to special summon a Goliath, or you might not if you're running out of time, whatever. The important thing is that you sacrifice whatever's in play to play the Brutal Dozer, and that allows you to special summon the Trencher. And now you've got 2 level 5s in play, so you can immediately Excise summon your River Stormer, and then detach the Trencher to search really anything you want to your hand. And now, would you look at that, you have the Trencher and an Infinitrack in your graveyard, so you can actually just special summon this right away and use it for something else, like, I don't know, playing another Goliath or something. So that is a quick rundown of a series of events that happens quite often throughout the combos that you are about to see. So, let's start with what is probably the simplest OTK combo. So you start off with this Machina redeployment. You discard something, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you bring to your hand Machina Metal Cruncher and Machina Fortress. So because you have nothing in play, you can normal summon the Machina Metal Cruncher and search your library for 3 copies of the Infinitrack Harvester. Again, it's important to have 3 for this very reason. So with 3 of these, you're guaranteed to add 1 to your hand. And because your hand now has these cards in it, you can discard them both to special summon the Machina Fortress. So now you've got these 2 cards in play, and a Harvester in your graveyard that you haven't used either of its effects from yet. So with these, you can link out the Ancient Gear Ballista. And because you've linked out the Ancient Gear Ballista, you can add the Gearbox to your hand, which allows you to add the Trencher to your hand, because it has exactly 500 attack. And now, would you look at that, you have 9 levels worth of Earth Machines in your hand. So you can discard them both to special summon the Fortress again. Hey, look at that. And now you have Trencher in your graveyard, so you can banish it to special summon the Harvester in defense mode. So now the Harvester's effect will go off. You can add the Brutal Dozer to your hand, but with the 2 of these, you can use the Harvester's other effect, and 2 + 7 = 9, so you can overlay them together to create the Infinitrack Earth Slicer. Yes, very useful. And now you can sacrifice this Ballista to play the Brutal Dozer, which allows you to play the Tunneler or something. And then you can overlay the 2 of them together to create the River Stormer. So you now have 2 pretty big Excise monsters, pretty much just from a single spellcast at the beginning. But, of course, it doesn't end there. Oh no, because you can detach something from the River Stormer to add, whatever, something big to your hand, like the Bullet Train, maybe. And you can remove cards from the Earth Slicer to destroy whatever your opponent might have. But the important thing there is that you have added the Machina Fortress back to your graveyard so you can discard the train to special summon the fortress from your graveyard. And now you have 2500 plus 2500 plus 3100 attack. If your opponent has nothing else in play at this point, this is 8000 damage. You can win off of this. So that is a very quick and relatively easy way to just pull off an OTK. And you know what, since I have these cards here anyway, I might as well show off what you can do if you're using the other Machina cards, the ones that I'm not actually using in this version of the deck. In that version of the deck, I probably would not use the Metal Cruncher. So instead, what you can do is search up the Machina Gear Frame and the Machina Fortress, because ultimately you'd wind up in a pretty similar place. You can normal summon the Gear Frame to add the Unclaspare to your hand, which will special summon itself, and this will throw something into your graveyard. But then you can Excisee summon out Gear Gigant X, and remove the Gear Frame to add to your hand from your deck an Infinitrack Harvester. So now, look at this. Look what you've got in your hand. You've got the Harvester, you've got the Fortress. You can pretty much do that exact same combo from here. It just took a few different steps to get there, but this does show that it is still possible to get that OTK even if you aren't using the Metal Cruncher itself. So, now let's talk about the other big starter in the deck, Urgent Schedule. So, provided your opponent has more monsters than you, and hopefully you've negated their effects through some means, you can play this to search your library for pretty much any 2 monsters that you want, provided they fall under certain requirements, and put them directly into play. So let's just go through a couple combos there, because there's a lot you can do with any 2 monsters, right? Now, suppose we choose the Infinitrack Harvester as our small monster, and the Infinitrack Trencher as our larger monster. They can't use their effects right now, they're negated, but what you can do is immediately link them together to make the Ancient Gear Ballista, which, of course, allows you to take the Ancient Gear box to your hand, which allows you to take the Infinitrack Anchor Drill to your hand as well, because it has 500 defense. So right now, this is what we know for sure is in our hand. But in the graveyard, this is where we have the Trencher, which we can banish, to special summon the Harvester. Now, because its effect did not go off the first time, it can now go off this time, allowing us to bring this to hand. But we aren't going to play this over the Harvester. No, what we want to do is normal summon the Anchor Drill, which allows us to special summon from our hand the Brutal Dozer, which allows us to special summon from the deck one of our other level 5s. Yeah, things get a little bit crowded at this point. But what we need to do is take the 2 of these and turn them into a River Stormer, as we normally do, and then we can, there we are, detach one of those to bring to our hand the Machina Fortress. And because we still have the Ancient Gearbox, we can discard these both to special summon the Fortress itself. So, again, we already know that 7 plus 2 is 9, so we can link those together, and by link I mean overlay, to create the Infinitrack Earth Slicer. So this is what our field looks like now, and I think you will find, especially after destroying whatever your opponent might have in play, we have more than enough power, 1500, 3100, 2500, and 1800, to go for another nice clean OTK this way. It's always important to remember what adds up to 9. 9 is an important number in this deck. And for one final combo, let's suppose that we once again choose the Harvester as our small monster from Urgent Schedule, and a big ol' level 10 for our large monster. Derrickrane is a good one to choose. So we have these in play now, and what we want to do is, once again, link them out into, you guessed it, the Ancient Gear Ballista. Now, the Ballista will bring to our hand Ancient Gear Box and Infinitrack Trencher. And with those in hand, we can just play the Trencher. And with the Trencher in play, we can sacrifice it to link out an Infinitrack Goliath. So now we have a Trencher in the graveyard. Well, I guess that might as well turn into a Harvester in play, which will, you can probably see where this is going, bring the Brutal Dozer to our hand. And we actually don't need this Harvester for anything else, so what you'd might as well do is just link it into another Infinitrack Goliath, because the two of these don't actually matter all that much. What we're doing now is playing the double-headed Anger Knuckle. So we can discard the Ancient Gear Box that is in our hand, and bring back this Heavy Freight Train Derricrane. And we can tribute this Anger Knuckle to play our Brutal Dozer, which will bring into play a Infinitrack Tunneler. And then we can use the two of those to, you've guessed it, special summon Infinitrack River Stormer, and then we can get rid of this Tunneler to search our libraries for another big ol' level 10, the Super Express Bullet Train, which can special summon itself. So now we've got two level 10s in play. Well, from that we can go right into the Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, and get rid of one of the two. If your opponent has something troublesome in play, you can blow it up by launching a train at it. And this also does 2,000 damage to them, so that is not irrelevant, because we can immediately throw this Super Dreadnought on top of that, and we actually have more than 6,000 attack power in play, so we don't even need to use the Rail Cannon's ability. We can just attack like this and go for the win, because, yeah, that's a lot of damage. Well, there you have it. This video ended up going much longer than I thought it would, but in the end it has been a pretty comprehensive guide on how one might play an Earth Machine deck in Master Duels, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it just a little bit informative as well. So, yes, if you did, then please leave a like, a comment, subscribe, and I do hope that you join me again next time for whatever my next deck profile might be. Till then, ta-ta. And... okay, this is unbelievable! What the heck am I looking at? Elemental Hero Stratos. Okay. That is quite something. Divine Dragon is pretty sweet. But I'm done. I'm done! Done!